All right. Hi, everybody. We're doing a short session on how I've been using AI for finding grants for AI for Community. I'm going to show how I'm using Claude to help me with that process. So the first thing I'm going to do very quickly because it's more complicated, and I'm going to go more in depth in this on the during the February 12th meetup. But it's how I use the Claude Chrome extension to do interesting things with websites. So I've installed in the Chrome browser this Claude extension, and it gives me this little, can everybody see this, like a little Claude symbol up here at the top, that when I click on it, it opens this side window here. And it's like, what can I help you with today? So I can here give it tasks where it's using information from this actual website to do things. So what I previously did is I said, go through all of these potential matches. And this is on a site called Instrumental, which is a site that, lets you find various grants and filter them and put them into stages for, like, I've applied for them, waiting to hear back, etc. So it's a grant discovery and management system. But like, even with filters, I had like almost 300 grant opportunities that I had to grind through, which is a perfect example of a tedious task. So what I did is I flagged a couple grants that seemed interesting, and I put them, I flagged them so they're in Tracker. So they were over here in this view. But then I went to matches. I opened up Claude and I said, go through all of these grants, look at them, uh, evaluate them relative to my nonprofit, which is AI for Community, find grants that fund education that are similar to the ones that I've flagged in Tracker. Pick the top 10 from those and give me the justifications for each one of them. And then I
So,
walked away.
an
And
Instrumenti, that is a grant database that you subscribe to, is that correct?
yes, correct.
Okay.
And I've got, it actually is through Bright Futures for Youth, which is a local nonprofit. They have, an account with them that they're paying for. They have like 10 projects. They were only using 9, so just let me use one of their 10 projects here for AI for Community general funding. All right. So after I did that, I had 10 more that I added to Tracker. But now I had the next step. And the next step was I needed to review those recommended opportunities to see how good of a fit they were. So for each one of these opportunities, if I, like, philanthropic investment fund, if I click on it, one of the things it's got in the funding opportunity is the ability to download the PDF that describes the opportunity. So I did that. Then what I did, and here's where it gets kind of interesting, is in Claude, I first created an artifact. And artifacts in Claude are where you have a conversation with Claude where the end result is something like a document that then you can refer to from other chats. But in this case, after I created the document, I downloaded it. So what I wanted to do was create a donor persona. So here's this artifact project I'm going to click on here. Um, and it was a long conversation. So if you start at the top, I'm like, I want to create a donor persona that I can use to review all of the outbound communications for my nonprofit. Actually, sorry, the one I really want you to see is the quick fact sheets. This is it. I needed to create a fact sheet about my organization um, that explained who we were and could be used when evaluating grant opportunities. Originally, this started off as like a donor perspective, but then it changed a bit. And I'm like, at the end, I said one of the things I want is to create a, uh, a quick fact sheet here. That's this thing right here, this artifact. It actually created multiple artifacts. So over on the right, you can see the artifact from this is this quick fact sheets that talks about my organization, how big we are, why we're different, leveraging, student transformation, competitive landscape, all the things that might be interesting when trying to evaluate a grant opportunity. So then what I did is I created over here a project, um, which was this coefficient giving funding. And what I should have done is created a single project for evaluating grant opportunities, but I wasn't quite sure how I was doing this. So I was creating one per funding opportunity. If I did it again, I just have a single project that's like, take a look at these funding opportunities. Um, if you look over here, there are instructions that I've given. You are an expert in nonprofit grant writing. You will only recommend writing a grant opportunity if opportunity aligns well with our organization's goals and capabilities. Here, I actually pasted in the the information about the organization that from the artifact that I created separately, right? So it just sort of describes who we are. Um, I added as a file in this case the funding opportunity that was for that particular coefficient giving funding, right? So then I said, tell me if we're a good match for it, right? I've attached the funding opportunity for a grant. Please assess it. And so now Claude is taking a look at that PDF and it's using the other context I give it, which is basically the background on the organization, plus the instructions about you're a skeptical like grant writer, like only recommend applying when it seems to make sense. And here it comes up with its recommendations. My recommendation is do not apply at this time. There's surface level alignments, but I see significant mismatches. So it talks about the critical misalignments. Um, so the funder seeks programs focused on global catastrophic risk, AI safety, effective altruism, and biosecurity. We're training nonprofits on effective and responsible AI use. Um, you know, then it also talks about organizational capacity. Like we have a stretch goal of training 1,000 people, which would be like 6 times more than the 150 we trained last year. We don't have any grant management experience, etc. Um, so it talks about it's poorly aligned. Um, what would need to change? So aligns with effective altruism principles. Um, so I then countered. I said, we spend 30% of our time addressing AI risks. And then I also say, we provide high leverage for funding. Every dollar, improves efficiency of people. So that kind of addresses effective altruism. So does that change your assessment? Um, so the leverage argument works with effective altruism. Um, so then it says, here's how you would have to kind of change to make it a good match. All right, so I went through that exact same process with like every one of the grants that it recommended. It found one that was a really good match. And what's interesting is, and I'll talk about this in the training today, a key thing when you're using AI for analysis is having some way of validating that analysis. So I'd done a quick look at these grants and I picked one that I said, this looks like it could really work for us. And that was the one grant that Claude said, this would be a great match. Right. So that was a way of me validating that Claude was kind of looking at things the right way, or at least the way that I saw things. Now, a really interesting point is Claude brought up a whole bunch of issues that I wasn't even thinking about when I was thinking about applying for a grant. And this relates to the thing we talked about yesterday in prompting, where a key benefit of AI is it can be somebody you're not, right? It can be that grant writer, expert grant writer. I'm not, and it knows what are the things that a funder is looking at to try and decide if this would be a good opportunity for them to support. So that has been incredibly valuable to me in using Claude here. All right. So that was a super quick demo. Um, any questions about this? And one of the things I'm going to also mention is I could potentially have skipped some steps here if I'd worked harder on my Claude Chrome extension prompt, where I could have said, I want you to download the PDF of the opportunity, and I want you to assess it that the opportunity relative to here is my company description, because it would have done a better job of filtering out ones that it's like, this is not a good alignment. It would have left me with a better list. And then I could have said, instead of just give me the top 10, I could have said, give me only the ones which there's a direct alignment or it's close enough to consider the grant in the near future. So I'm learning from this process, which is always something that happens with AI. Like that's how I should probably have done it because it would have saved me some steps. Right? All right. Any questions about this?
And I have a question.
Sure.
In the full meetup, are you going to go into using AI to write the grants also, in addition to finding them?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is take one of these grant opportunities and say, okay, I need to eventually write a letter of interest. And so I'm going to talk about how I use the funding opportunity description in the PDF and my company description to write a good letter of interest, which you need to do before they tell you, okay, I think maybe it's a match and go ahead and apply.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. But I think the reason why right now I'm focusing on how you use AI to filter and assess all these funding opportunities is that often the best use of AI, I said, is in tedious, in reducing the tedium, and that is the tedious part. Crafting the grant application, I mean, for a number of nonprofits, they have people who've written grant applications before. Okay, so you can use AI to assess your grant application, and we talk about that in one of the labs today. Like that's one of the exercises to go through. But that's not the biggest time saver, right? The biggest time saver is I've got 300 opportunities here, even with filtering. Which ones make sense? So that's definitely going to be the focus. Any other questions? No? Great. All right. It's 10 o'clock. Laura, why don't you stop the